Alright, Shalom. You reached the He Pray channel. My name is Isaac Wath. First and foremost, I want to say call Halagim Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Hawadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Had the Rock, the way where I learned this truth from, who rule well. Salutations to the Backyard, the elect, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel consist of you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to you Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So it's not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that died in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. As always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harachachwadash for answering my prayers, permitting me to do such. Baba Kashal Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harachachwadash allowed us to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. The Backyard Had the Rock, which is the way. We're calling ourselves followers of the way, or being referred to as the way. And today, the way are also known as a Great Millstone. So this video is going to be entitled 200 million, which is a nuclear judgment. And as it says in the co-pilot, refers to symbolism, right? Because you see a lot of these people that claim to be Christians or to know the Bible, they really don't understand the scriptures. That's the reason why Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, he sent seers, which they were called seers before they were called prophets. And it also just so happens that what the prophets are going to be saying is going to spread throughout the whole world, right? Which is the gospel, the good news, right? This is St. Matthew chapter 24, verse 14. It says, in this gospel, which means good news of the kingdom, which the kingdom is for you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous, and those scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, whose line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It says, shall be preached. Another word for preach is to prophesy, right? In all the world for a witness. And how did this word reach the world? Through the internet, man. Which it speaks about the internet, and I believe Psalms the 19th chapter. That's how this word was able to go throughout the four quarters of the earth. Which, a lot of these inventions were already prophesied to be invented. Just as these nuclear missiles were invented to bring about the destruction of the so-called white man, who was Esau, started calling himself white in the 1600s, started the process due to the Bacon rebellions. But we know he's not white, he's translucent. And being translucent, he appears red because his blood shows forth through his skin. It says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. So all nations, including these heathen nations. And why is that? Because our people, the elect, are scattered among all these heathen nations. because of course there's going to be a lot of Israelites dying all throughout the world, but those that are preserved, those mixed multitude that are outside of that are in the courts, right? They're allotted from the foundation of the earth to be preserved from the second death. And then, of course, you have the elect, which consists of the 144,000, which is the governing body. And then the rest of the one third that are going to be delivered out of here in America, which is the third Babylon, right? It says, and then shall the end come. And now we're in the end, which these prophecies are a process, because prophecies have to be filled, fulfilled according to their measure. So we're in the beginning stages of World War III, which, that war with Iran is biblical. You can find it in 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, right? So let's go back. It says the sixth trumpet army from the east. So we're in between the sixth and the seventh trumpet. The seventh trumpet represents completion, where everything is done. We're in the kingdom of heaven then. We have obtained victory through the elect, whoever they may be, right? This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 13, and the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before Yahweh, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the river, in the great river Euphrates. So you got to go to Revelation, the 7th chapter, to get a little bit more understanding. This is Revelation chapter 7, verse 1. It says, and after these things I saw four angels. So there's actual angels that you can't see with the naked eye, that are assigned to hold back what? What are they holding back? Standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. So precept upon precept, we'll go to Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 1. It says, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon. Now this particular Babylon is America, the third Babylon. Babylon going into the Hebrew Babel, which means confusion. Because of Esau's lies, that he had the little season, he has deceived the world, and he has deceived his populace in madness, and they believe in madness. That's why, you hear a lot of these Edomites, they always just regurgitate the same talking points, the same lies that they were told, that they think it's true, but it's not. It says, and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind, which that destroying wind represents that nuclear destruction. Going back to Revelation 7 and 2, it says, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living power, which that's the Torah, the exemption from judgment, right? Which you could read about that in Ezekiel, the 9th chapter. It says, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our power in their foreheads. And then the preceding verses go into the 144,000. But to get back to Revelation chapter 9, verse 15, it says, and the four angels were loosed. So now at this particular time, these angels are going to be loose, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. Now there's three classifications of men. You got the sons of the wicked, which is the Edomites, the so-called white man. You got the sons of men, which is these heathen nations. And then you have the sons of God, which is Yasha Allah. He is Prince of the Power, which is you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous. It says, in the number of the in the number of the army, which even these missiles are a part of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua's army, right? Of the horsemen, and these are the same horsemen that Joel saw, were 200,000, which equates to 200 million, right? And now what do you have? You have an arms race going on right now, and one intercontinental ballistic missile can house, some house over a dozen warheads, right? It says, and I heard the number of them, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, right? Because it's describing the actual missile. And the head is the cone, which houses those warheads. And one of the most fiercest animals to compare them to would be a lion. Very destructive and able to tear into pieces. It says, and out of their mouths issued fire, which is that nuclear fire, and smoke is going to cause smoke to bellow, into the atmosphere, which is going to block out the stars, it's going to block out the sun, it's going to block out the moon, it's going to cause something they call nuclear winter or nuclear winter, right? It says in brimstone, which the brimstone is the radiation, man, which radiation causes contamination, and that contamination can kill you, depending on the concentration of the isotopes. Verse 18, by these three was the third part of men killed, right? Because this World War III, is going to be fought between Esau and then, some of these heathen nations. That's why in not Revelation, but Isaiah the 19th chapter says he's going to set Egyptian against Egyptian. This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 1, the burden of Egypt, which Egypt is an allegory for the house of bondage. You can learn about that through a precept, I believe it's in Exodus chapter 20, verse 2. It says, I am Yahweh thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Because when you go into the history, that land was changed to Egypt due to the conquering done by Alexander the Great. But its original name was Martazari in the time in which we were in slavery under Pharaoh, right? So going back to Isaiah chapter 19, verse 1, the burden of Egypt, behold, Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud, and his son, Yahweh Shai, our beloved, Shiloh, right? He's going to be standing on top of a massive chariot, a massive ship that looks like a mountain, right? And that's what the clouds represent. They represent the chariots of Israel, which is the so-called UFOs or UAPs. UFO standing for unidentifiable flying object, UAP standing for unidentifiable aerial phenomenon. And there has been reports that they can turn those nuclear missiles off. It says, and shall come into Egypt, which is America, and the idols of America shall be moved at his presence. Why? Because everyone's going to realize that they inherited lies. And also those idols are going to be destroyed. Let's see. Just bear with me. Right, this is Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19. It says, O Yahweh, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. Right, affliction also represents slavery and oppression. Right, That's why it says in, I believe, Nahum. Let me see if I can get it for you. Let me see if I'm right. Right. Nahum chapter 1, verse 9, it says, "What do ye imagine against Yahweh?" And this is him speaking to these heathen nations, man. Because starting with Esau, they think that they're going to be able to put you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous back into slavery, right? It says he will make a utter end, but he's saying that he's going to make an utter end of you heathen nations, starting with you so-called white people, you Edomites. It says affliction, which affliction is that slavery, that hardcore shadow slavery and oppression, shall not rise up the second time. So, them thinking that they're going to put us back into slavery is pipe dreams. The most that they're going to do is, kill 2/3 of the nation of Israel, man, which we already know that. And those 2/3 need to die. But going back to Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19, it says, "O Yahweh, my strength and my fortress." So Yahweh Shah is supposed to be our strength. He's supposed to be our fortress, right? And that's why we have to pray onto Yahweh Shah, man. First and foremost. It says, "In my refuge in the day of affliction," right? Going back to that slavery and oppression. "The Gentiles," which is these heathen nations, "shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth, and shall say, Surely our fathers have inherited lies." And let me just make sure, because it could be talking about Israelite foreigners. Slakia. Yeah, it's goy. So this is the word goy, which says nation, people, usually of non-Hebrew people. And how you pronounce it in the Lashawan Tahar is Gowaya, So why would they say something like that? I'll go ahead and get it, because I quoted it earlier. This is I'll start at the top. Revelation chapter 20, verse 1, it says, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit," which this angel was Yahweh Shai. And the bottomless pit is Europe, because they have no natural resources. And a great chain in his hand. Why do he have a great chain? Going back to Genesis chapter 27, um, just trying to get to the point. Right. This is Genesis chapter 27, verse 39. "And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth." And that's why you see so-called white people all over the earth trying to police the world, right? And of the dew of heaven from above. And that's why they're in outer space or near earth orbit. And by the sword, and that's the reason why he was blessed with the gun, right? And he has a powerful military. "Shalt thou live," and he lives by it, man. "And shall serve thy brother." So there was a point in time where he served us, and also he served us during that chattel slavery, man. It says, "And it shall come to pass," so there's going to be a time when thou shalt have the dominion. And that dominion started in the Renaissance, but prior to that, he was a peasant. He was a serf. He was a servant unto Jacob. It says that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And that's when he came into power and he was helped by the Black Plague, right? So going back to Revelation 20 and 2, it says, and he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, that same spirit that was in the garden that deceived Eve, right? Which is the devil. Devil means deceiver or accuser. And Satan, Satan means adversary. But you see how Esau went about with Hollywood, making these names into, I want to say, caricatures. Let me see if I could find a definition of it. Just bear with me. Caricature, caricature, grotesque or ludicrous representation of persons or things by absurd exaggeration of what is characteristic, right? And he put that with all these things, man, the dragon, the serpent, the devil, and Satan, man, and put a Hollywood twist on it, right? It says cast him into the bottomless pit. So that was during the time of the Dark Ages, and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more. So there was a point in time when the nations weren't deceived by this damn devil. Till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And that ended around 1450. You know, maybe it started a little bit before 1350 until where you had the Renaissance, right? Because Rome, around the fourth Emperor Constantine, right? Around 350 to 1350, you know. Um, so going back to Revelation 20 and 3, it says, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. So that 1,000 years was fulfilled. And then what was going to happen? It says, and after that he must be loosed a little season. So that same dragon, that same serpent, that same devil, that same Satan, that adversary who deceived the nations was going to deceive the nations again, right? In this little season that we're in, man, right? So going back to Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19, it says, "O Yahweh, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction, the Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth, and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, in things wherein there is no profit. Shall a man make gods unto himself?" Because they're going to know the truth then. And they are no gods. Therefore, behold, I will this once cause them to know. I will cause them to know my hand and my might, and they shall know that my name is Yahweh. And this is what he's going to do, man. He's going to put fear back into the world. And rightfully so. Going back to Isaiah chapter 19, verse 1, it says, "A burden of Egypt, behold, Yahweh rideth upon a swift cloud, shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it." Right. Because people are going to be perplexed. They're going to be afraid. They're going to have heart attacks. They're going to have strokes. When they see Yahweh Shah coming in his glory. It says, verse 2, "And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians." And the modern day Egyptians are the Edomites, so-called white man, right? "And they shall fight every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city." So there's going to be an ideological civil war in America, where Yahweh's going to pit Esau against each other, because they think it's just going to be a black and white civil war or race war. But we know the scriptures, man, right? We know prophecy, which, America was already took down in another dimension, man. It says in kingdom against kingdom, and that's where you're going to have these countries that are Edomite nations fighting against each other, man. So going back to Revelation chapter 9, verse 17, it says, "And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire and jacinth and brimstone." And that's them going in and exiting, entering and exiting the atmosphere. It says, "The heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths." It's those warheads. For their power is in their mouth, because that's where the warheads are housed. And in their tails, that's the propulsion system. For their tails were like unto serpents, and it looks like a flying snake. And there is certain species of snakes that fly. Not necessarily what you're thinking. Oh, they got wings. No, they could fly from tree to tree. They could jump from tree to tree. Matter of fact, let me see. The Chrysopelia is a genus of snakes commonly known as flying snakes or gliding snakes that belong to the family Colubridae. So there's video.
This snake can literally fly through the air. It's called the flying snake, and it doesn't have wings. Instead, it climbs to the top of trees, then launches itself into the air. While falling, it flattens its body like a ribbon and wiggles side to side. That movement helps it glide from tree to tree, almost like a living parachute. Some flying snakes can glide over 300 feet, so no, it's not flying like a bird. But if you saw a snake sailing through the jungle above your head, you'd probably run anyway. Don't forget.
So he likened it onto a flying serpent. It says, "And had heads, and with them they do hurt." Because what? That's where the nuclear warheads are housed. "And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues yet repented not of the works of their hands." And this is dealing with those rich elite. that are going to flee into their underground bunkers, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor walk, nor can neither see nor hear nor walk, neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor their fornication, nor of their thefts. And that's the same spirit that they had even prior to their destruction. So let's go to Copilot. It says 200,000 Shah Nayam Rabbah. Etymology Rabbah, multitude, exponential increase, overwhelming number. Layman commentary, John isn't counting literal soldiers. He's describing a massive destructive force. GMS teaches this symbolizes the combined nuclear capability of the nations, prophetically reaching 200 million in destructive potential, meaning an unstoppable flood of missiles. Right? For verse 17, it says, out of their mouths issue fire, smoke, and brimstone. Ayash, or Ayash, fire, Ashan, smoke, Gaparath, burning sulfur. Etymology, Ayash, burning flame, Ashan, rising smoke column, Gaparath, sulfuric explosive burning. Right? Laban commentary, this is nuclear detonation imagery. Fireball, mushroom cloud, chemical fallout. The mouths represent missile launch tubes releasing destruction, which the mouths represents the cone of the war of the missile. So let's go to Revelation chapter 16. It says, this Revelation chapter 16, verse 21, it says, and there fell upon men a great hell out of heaven, which that hell is those warheads. The hell represents those nuclear warheads. Every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blaspheme the Most High because of the plague of the hell, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. And those nuclear missiles, which are a plague, they're going to completely wipe America off the face of the earth. Which you're not going to be able to recognize America. Pursuing Isaiah the 34th chapter, the 11th verse, I believe the apostles did a video on it earlier today. But it says, great hell, every stone about the weight of a talent. Lashawan Kodash, Barad Gadol, great hell. Kakar, talent weight, 100 to 120 pounds. Etymology, Barad equals hell falling destructive objects. Kakar, heavy unit of weight, symbolic of massive impact. Layman commentary, a hailstone weighing 100 pounds is not natural hail. It resembles warheads falling from the sky. Nuclear warheads often weigh hundreds of pounds, and the detonation head aligns with the talent symbolism, heavy, falling, explosive. All right, so let's go to Isaiah 54 and 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth a instrument for his work." And that smith was Oppenheimer. "And I have created the waster." The waster is the nuclear missile to destroy. Yeah, to destroy, man. And it's going to destroy utterly. So going back to Copilot, it says, "I created the smith and the waster to destroy, Lashon Kodash, Karash, craftsman, engineer, Mashik, Mashath, Mashith, destroyer, etymology, Karash, metal worker, designer, builder, Mashith, annihilator, instrument of ruin." Layman commentary, the Most High controls the minds of the scientists, smiths, who create weapons. Nuclear engineers unknowingly fulfill prophecy by crafting the missile systems destined for end-time judgment. You know? And here these damn devils, in their pride, they think that, it's because of their intelligence, their IQ, which is far from the truth. This is the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 30, which it says, "The day of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua," it says, "And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and the terrible day of Yahweh come." And we always had those blood moons. "And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua," emphasizing Yahweh Shai, "shall be delivered. For Mount Zion and Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as Yahweh have said, and in the remnant whom Yahweh shall call," because he's only calling the elect. So going back to Copilot, it says, "Blood, fire, and pillars of smoke." Lashon Kodash, Ahmad Ashan, pillar of smoke, Ahmad, column, vertical structure, Ashan, smoke. Layman commentary, a pillar of smoke is a mushroom cloud, the unmistakable signature of nuclear detonation. Joel's vision aligns perfectly with modern nuclear blast imagery. Summary: how 200 million and 100-pound hailstones equals nuclear warheads. 200 million equals symbolic representation of global nuclear destructive capability. 100-pound hailstones equals warheads falling from the heavens. Fire, smoke, brimstone, pillars of smoke, nuclear blast characteristics. The smith and waster, engineers creating missile systems under divine prophecy. So with that, hopefully one brother of the elect was edified, and I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom.